The ghost in the cylinder. Human rights did not begin in modern times. They were restored by a conqueror. This clay artifact, the Cyrus cylinder, is the evidence. The question is, why did history forget him? Today, we reconstruct the geopolitical architecture created by Cyrus the Great, founder of the Achaemenid Empire. Conventional narratives often depict a linear progression from ancient barbarism to modern enlightenment. However, the archaeological record complicates standard narratives of ancient imperial power, suggesting that the inception of universal governance and multi-ethnic integration has a much older witness. Hidden for 2.5 millennia in the dust of Mesopotamia was a single object that defies the typical tropes of ancient victory. It is not a declaration of slaughter, but a manifesto of restoration. Because if this object is telling the truth, then modern freedom isn't a recent invention. It's a forgotten recovery. Today, we unearth the anomaly of the Achaemenid state. The Assyrian contrast, rule by terror. To understand the anomaly of Cyrus, we must understand the world he replaced. For centuries, the standard for empire was set by the Neo-Assyrians. Their records are filled with what historians call rule by terror. Their palace reliefs depict flayed enemies, piles of skulls, and kings boasting of sowing salt into the earth of conquered cities to ensure nothing grew again. Mass deportation was their primary weapon, breaking the spirit of nations by uprooting them from their ancestral lands. Then came the Persians. In 539 BC, Cyrus reached Babylon, the psychological and economic center of the world. It was protected by fortifications reportedly wide enough for 2 4-horse chariots to pass each other on top. Cyrus utilized a combination of psychological warfare and hydraulic engineering. He exploited a theological crisis. The last native king, Nabonidus, had alienated the priesthood of Marduk. Cyrus did not conquer Babylon merely militarily. He captured its legitimacy. By reportedly diverting the Euphrates River into a nearby basin, the water level dropped to the thighs of a man. His troops entered through unsecured river gates under the cover of night. On October 29, 539 BC, Cyrus entered not as a butcher, but as a restorer. This represented one of the earliest documented programs of state-sponsored cult restoration and deportee return. Imagine a Jewish exile, who for generations had wept by the rivers of Babylon, suddenly handed a royal edict and the funds to return home. This wasn't just kindness. It was a total restructuring of imperial power through the protection of local identity. The king's eyes, the third power. Governing an empire that stretched from the Indus to the Aegean required more than just soldiers. It required a system of accountability. To manage this, Cyrus and his successors refined the satrapy system. But they added a revolutionary layer of political theory, the third power. Each satrap, governor, was paired with a royal secretary and a royal treasurer, both of whom reported directly to the king. But the most feared element was the king's eyes and ears. These were official royal inspectors who functioned as an independent audit agency. Consider a hypothetical satrap in a distant province like Lydia. He might command a private army and live in a palace of gold, but he lived in constant fear of a lone traveler. A king's eye could arrive unannounced, not with a battalion, but with a scroll and a royal seal. They audited tax records and listened to the grievances of the local population. If a satrap was found to be overtaxing a merchant or violating the king's edict of religious tolerance, the inspector's report could end that satrap's career or his life overnight. A satrap could command armies, but the king's eyes commanded compliance. This triangulated balance of power ensured that the central government's edicts were not just words on clay, but administrative reality. The Pirradazis, the first postal system. Communication requires more than just roads. It requires a system. Cyrus and Darius invented the world's first organized postal service, the Pirradazis, stretching 2,500 kilometers from Susa to Sardis. The Royal Road was the backbone of this network. It featured 111 relay stations placed at exact intervals. At each station, Fresh horses and rested couriers waited around the clock. The Greek historian Herodotus, usually a critic of the Persians, wrote in awe, "Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds." This was the ancient world's equivalent of fiber optics. A message could travel the entire length of the road in just 7 to 9 days, a journey that took 90 days on foot. This speed allowed the king's eyes to report corruption in real time. It meant that power no longer sat with the local governor, but with the speed of information. Every station was a heartbeat in a massive organism, ensuring that a decree signed in Susa was being read in Sardis before the week was out. The Persepolis archive, the Pashap. The social reality of this system is preserved in the Persepolis fortification archive, over 30,000 clay paychecks. These records show a society far more nuanced than modern caricatures suggest. Records indicate standardized rations across comparable roles, including women in high-ranking administrative positions known as Pashap. Imagine a woman like Erdabama, a powerful business mogul and administrator mentioned in the tablets. She managed vast workforces, authorized transactions, and held her own official seal of authority. We even find records of maternity rations, a form of state-supported social security. While contemporary societies were often rigid and patriarchal, the Persian administration prioritized merit and production. If you were an efficient administrator, your contribution to the Asha, the cosmic and imperial order, was what mattered. It was a world where a woman's seal could authorize the movement of thousands of tons of grain, proving that meritocracy was the engine of the anomaly. The Paradise, engineering the earth, Qanat. Cyrus's vision of order was physically manifested in the Pirradazis, the root of our word paradise. Environmental order mirrored political order. Stability was engineered, not imposed. This was achieved through a technical miracle, the Qanat system. These were underground aqueducts that extracted groundwater from mountain aquifers and moved it over dozens of miles through gently sloping tunnels. The engineering precision was staggering. The tunnels were dug with a gentle gradient, sometimes as little as 1 meter of drop over a kilometer. This precision ensured that every drop reached the garden without loss. By keeping the water underground, they eliminated evaporation in the desert heat, a challenge that modern water systems still struggle with. Many of these Qanats are still functional today, 2,500 years later. This water was then channeled into the Chahar Bagh layout, a 4-part geometric garden. The symbol was clear. The 4 sections represented the 4 corners of the world, brought into harmony by the king's rule. A king who could create life and lush greenery in a barren desert was a king who could provide life where there was only chaos. The end of the map, Alexander at the tomb. The true evidence of Cyrus's legacy comes 2 centuries after his death. In 324 BC, Alexander the Great, having systematically dismantled the Persian Empire, arrived at Pasargadae. He went to the tomb of Cyrus, a simple, dignified chamber sitting on 6 massive stone steps. To his horror, he found the tomb had been plundered. Alexander, a man who rarely showed mercy, was reportedly filled with rage. He did not celebrate the desecration of his rival's founder. He ordered the tomb to be immediately restored and the perpetrators executed. He even ordered the inscription on the tomb to be preserved, which reportedly read, "O man, whoever you are and wherever you come from, I am Cyrus who won the Persians their empire. Do not begrudge me this bit of earth that covers my bones." Alexander recognized that he wasn't just standing at a grave. He was standing at the foundation of the very concept of a world empire. He saw himself not as the man who defeated Cyrus, but as the man who inherited his map. Conclusion: reclaiming the paradise. We spent 2,000 years losing the map, waiting for modern revolutions to rediscover what the Achaemenids had already mastered. We like to think we invented freedom in the modern age, but we're just rebuilding the paradise that Cyrus first planted. What would the world look like today if we rebuilt our systems, not by conquest, but by the principles Cyrus first planted? The Achaemenid Anomaly proves that a superpower can function through merit, infrastructure, and the protection of individual dignity. The question is not whether this model existed, but why later empires abandoned it, and whether we have the courage to reclaim those principles today. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds.